Hi, my name is Shane Bullier, and today I will be covering globalization, how my line of work relates to it, and what I believe to be a global issue that everyone is concerned about. Globalization means something different to each of us, and yet it is inescapable. It affects us all. It is a social implement that in turn shapes our society. And here we have a quote from George Ritzer from our reading in this class. In today's world, there are many facets of our daily lives that affect and are affected by globalization. Economy, cultural exchange, technology, and politics, to name a few. It has changed the way we interact, educate, conquer wide-reaching issues like terrorism, global warming, and infectious diseases. As a writer, this has always been a main focus, the human condition. It's an all-encompassing view of how we interact within the tiers of society in order to create depths in our novels. It also requires us to examine how that person sees themselves in a globalized, even McDonaldized world, and what actions they take as a result. How do I fit in? What issues matter to me? What can I change? I find a great deal of interest in many of these issues since I can use them to create a realized world for my craft. For many years, a particular irrationality born of rationality has fascinated me beyond words. Global pandemics. Globalization is, and has been, a catalyst for epidemics emerging as pandemics. To clarify any confusion between words like sporadic, endemic, epidemic, and pandemic, I offer some quick definitions relating to disease. The one I want to focus on here, obviously, is pandemic. It refers to an epidemic that is spread over several countries or continents, usually affecting a large number of people. And as a writer, I find the nature of pandemics to be extremely interesting as a social dynamic that I can add to my stories. Let's face it, pandemics in today's world is a direct result of globalization. From the outset of the Industrial Revolution, beginning in the early 18th century, trade enabled an increase in spreading disease. While air transportation didn't really take off until the mid-20th century, travel spurred on by the Industrial Revolution meant humans went great distances for commerce. As a consequence, the mobility of infected people and animals increased. According to the CDC, one of the main contributors to epidemics is an enhanced mode of transmission so that more susceptible persons are exposed. And what's more enhanced than air travel? MIT News informs us that the 2003 SARS outbreak and the 2009 H1N1 flu pandemic that claimed over 300,000 lives worldwide heightened awareness of viral and bacterial mobility aided by air travel. With tens of thousands of flights per day in the world, the stage for pandemics is set. Humanity, through globalization, knowingly or unknowingly, has wagered our well-being against Mother Nature. And they always say the odds favor the house. MIT further expands on their statement by providing this model of disease contagion within 40 of U.S.'s largest airports. New York, Los Angeles, and Honolulu rank highest in terms of pandemic growth risk. And that's the point. We are all impacted by this threat. As a globalized society, we are no longer separated by space and time. We rely on air travel to move us vast distances in short times. But airports and planes move more than only people. They have also transported diseases such as influenza, SARS, and tuberculosis. Some airports in the United States are able to spread disease more quickly, according to the researchers at MIT. There are thousands of airports that link us and airliners that hold hundreds at a time, and we can travel to these thousands of destinations within a day. Any of us could become a Trojan horse for a pathogen. Take the events of the early 20th century that culminated in World War I. Soldiers overseas were harbingers of death, not only on the battlefields, but at home. Many U.S. soldiers were afflicted by the Spanish flu before returning, and while most of the travel was by boat, the effect was the same. Means of expedited travel enabled the disease to spread across the globe, claiming approximately 50 million lives. How then do we react to an ever-increasing threat of exposure? Most countries rely primarily on agencies like our Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As a world body, global issues are handled by the World Health Organization. As a society, we are adapting to our new environment of sharing space with dangerous viruses and bacteria. Not doing so has cut a heavy toll into our global population over the centuries. International health agencies have increased our awareness. Research has shown that media coverage has an effect on different characteristics of an epidemic, such as the magnitude of its peak, its timing, and the final number of infections. Media coverage, therefore, is critical. So too are pop culture avenues. Movies like Zombieland, World War Z, and shows like The Walking Dead have captured our imagination surrounding viral outbreaks. Economically, it's a struggle to balance acceptable risks, bringing in poor countries into the world market. Lack of adequate medical facilities to maintain a healthy local population means we take the chance of succumbing to local maladies and introducing them to the world at large. How do we mitigate exposure, since elimination is nearly impossible given the context of our global interconnectedness? Well, we can centralize flights to airports that are equipped to screen incoming travelers, reducing risks to large population centers like New York, Los Angeles, and Honolulu. We could also have airtime on popular TV stations, public addresses by political and celebrity powerhouses, and spreading the word via social media outlets like Fox News, Facebook, YouTube. And then we combine the efforts of all the heads of state, national and international health agencies like CDC and WHO, trade organizations, and airline industry giants to mitigate the spread of contagious disease. And educating travelers will make them vital to this process. As we can only control our borders and not those outside, only influence, we have to have a system in place that will mitigate the introduction of infectious pathogens. By setting up international airports with systems and personnel, like CDC TACs, we can respond at its source and contain it as much as possible. We would essentially have patient zero, or close to it, rather than trying to figure out where the pathogen came from. As an interdisciplinary approach, borrowed from the networking community, we could implement the firewall system of detection and quarantine and eradication of the pathogen. Moving forward, fine-tuning the process to improve results to maximize this effort would go a long way for public acceptance and reliance. Thank you.